Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGeek webinar series, our endeavor to impart techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is Earth Hour 2013 and IT power optimization, the impact of saving power in computers. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Srinivas Vardarajan, CEO Vigyan Labs Innovations Private Limited. Srinivas is the founder and CEO of Vigyan Labs and has 20 plus years of experience in computer science. In the past, Srini worked with Hewlett-Packard, Perot Systems and held very senior positions in the organizations, leading engineering teams that build systems such as Amadeus and HPE Speak among others. Recently, Srini was one of the key IT architects for the Aadhaar program and has also served the Indian Air Force in design of biometric systems. Srinivas holds 4 patents, including his latest one for application sensing power management of IT infrastructure. He holds an MTech from IIT Bombay. So without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Mr. Srinivas.
Good afternoon, everybody. In the next 45 minutes to an hour, I'll just walk you through this Earth Hour, why Earth Hour, and what is different in 2013, and how can we save power by doing some IT optimization in the various IT infrastructure. And what's the impact of saving power in computers? In the sense computers, I mean I cover a whole range of computing equipment. Could be a mobile phone, a tablet, a desktop, a server, and a wide range of IT equipment. Here is the brief agenda. I'll just briefly speak about the Earth Hour, why it's so important, why it's such an important event, and what is different this year. Next, I'll go on to IT product lifecycle, how the product is made, and how it's used, and how it's disposed, and what is the impact on the environment throughout the life cycle of an IT product. Subsequently, we'll go into IT optimization opportunities, where all the power gets wasted, what is the impact on the environment and different aspects of IT can do, and how you can save, what is the impact of savings, and finally conclude with how to join the Earth Hour context and what impact we have made so far, and how you can contribute to this Earth Hour 2013 event. I'll go to the next slide. IT and Earth Hour. Historically, Earth Hour has been a context on March 23rd every year. And what happens during this Earth Hour event is symbolically everybody turns off their lights. Cities turn off lights, houses turn off lights, everybody turns off lights. Symbolic. Just to demonstrate that we can save power and make the environment greener, and also create a awareness among the public that yes, we need to save power and save the environment. So what are we doing different this year? If you look at the lighting, we always use this incandescent light bulb as a symbolic. We are saying, the age-old Edison bulb. But since then, last few decades, we moved on from the incandescent light bulb, which used to occupy, which used to consume 60 to 80 watts. We got the tube lights, then we got the CFLs, LED bulbs, and light bulbs have become more and more efficient. At the same time, what has happened is we all, have a lot of IT equipment, personally and professionally. We have one or more phones, mobile phones, smartphones, tablets, desktops, laptops, and a huge range of IT infrastructure. So in the current world today, with billions of devices, and devices themselves consume a significant amount of power. So what we want to demonstrate this year as a part of the IT Earth Hour is that let us start saving power on computers and demonstrate to the world that why only turn off lights, why can't we turn off computers also, why only on the Earth Day, why can't we start late ahead of time and demonstrate that how each individual, each organization can make a global impact. And you must have seen the logo, the new logo of WWF. We have been working with WWF to create the awareness about saving power on computers. This year, WWF has changed the logo, and the logo says save power on computers, just saying turn off. So this is the world's first initiative of this kind, and it's been done in India. We should all be proud of it. We'll go to the next slide. We all talk about CO2, carbon emissions, CO2. Why is CO2 so important? Since carbon footprint is an indicator of many important things. One is we need to be able to monitor and reduce the carbon footprint to reduce global warming. What's the impact of CO2, right? CO2 molecules absorb the infrared radiation. So when the sunlight falls on the Earth, some part of it is absorbed, some part of it goes back to the atmosphere. But in the atmosphere, has a lot of CO2. The CO2 molecules actually absorb the infrared radiation, also reflect back to the Earth again, which thereby increasing the temperature and can cause serious damage. Like we have seen recently, the polar ice caps start melting, Himalayas are melting. There's change in the weather pattern. There have been hurricanes, and there have been snowfall at places which have never unheard of snowfalls, and so on. You can just see the illustration here in this graphic. It shows how the sun rays come from the sun, fall on the Earth, and these greenhouse gases of the CO2 molecules absorb the sun infrared rays and it again reflect back to the Earth, thereby increasing the Earth's temperature. I'll go to the next slide. Let us look at the life cycle of an IT product. So we all have keep on buying new equipment, new phones, new tablets, new desktops, new laptops, smart, and many other devices. So this equipment is manufactured typically in China these days, and from the Chinese factory it is shipped on to some warehouses, in the appropriate context. It could be in India and Europe or the US. And from the warehouse it goes on to the stores or to your online retailers like Amazon, who ships it to your home. Next thing is once you buy the equipment, you start using it. So during usage of the equipment, you consume quite a bit of power. And once you're done with the usage of the equipment, probably dispose of the equipment, it goes through a recycling phase. So typically, every phase of the life cycle of an equipment, a significant amount of energy is used, consumed. Energy could be, electricity, petroleum, gas, coal, and or so. So each phase of this life cycle consumes significant amount of energy and releases significant amount of CO2 into the atmosphere. There are other things which are released into the atmosphere besides CO2, but I just look at CO2 as one indicator because it's fairly sufficiently large and easily measurable. Okay. Again, while doing manufacturing, we also use a lot of other sources of material like metals, plastic, rubber, water, other fluids and gases are used in the manufacture. So we have just broadly seen that is a high level life cycle of the IT product. Let's see what happens during each phase of the life cycle. The next slide. Look at the slides here. You can see that based on the data we have from various manufacturers and indirectly derive the data from many of the equipment distillers, manufacturers, and independent bodies which have been conducting tests on the CO2 emissions. We see that 90% of the emissions happen during manufacture and usage. This means we need to look at how do we optimize, improve the efficiency in manufacturing, optimize power consumption during the usage. Also, once it is manufactured, how long can we continue the equipment? Because once it's manufactured, the CO2 emission is already done, right? It's already emitted so much of emissions. We can't undo it. We need to see how far we can stretch the equipment. So the coming slides, I look at the item number 1 and 3, equipment manufacture and usage, and how do we optimize the CO2 emissions during these two phases. And you will be surprised, to just look at the various devices, mobile phones, tablets, and PCs. PCs, I mean desktops and laptops together. And these numbers are not easily available for manufacturers because each manufacturer gives a wide variety of data, and there are a wide variety of phones, from a touchscreen phone to a non-touchscreen phone, with a 2-inch screen to a 5-inch screen or higher, bigger thing. So what you see in the screen in the pie charts here is the amount of CO2 emitted, the range of CO2 emitted during the 3-year life cycle of a device. Assume it's the life cycle of a device for 3 years. Sometimes which may not be true because you may, you dispose a phone in a year, or you may throw a tablet in 2 years, so on. So this is not, the data is normalized across 3 years across a wide range of devices. See that for the mobile phones, 56% of the energy is spent during manufacturing. 56% of CO2 emissions that happen during manufacture. 37% using usage of the device. That means we use a phone, we keep charging every day or many times, often many times in a day, so that consumes power. Then again, small amount of energy is consumed by the transmission because things are shipped either by through a air cargo or a ship to the final destination, and the small amount of energy is again consumed during the recycling. As you move from mobile, these CO2 emissions on the environment as a whole is just not one of us. And their impact on the environment. As of today, we have nearly 4 billion mobile phones. And the kind of damage it has already done. So it has emitted 600 million tons of CO2, 15 billion trees. I don't think we have grown so much trees. We have cut billions of trees during this process. And that's relatively new. Already we have committed we have emitted 40 million tons of CO2, is equivalent to growing 1 billion trees. Now let's look at the desktops. Desktops have been there for a while, last couple of decades. Just taken a snapshot of the desktops, 1 billion pieces which are there today. I have taken the cumulative impact of the desktops which are already manufactured 10-15 years back to recycle. Just taken the snapshot as of today. So the damage done by these desktops cumulatively is about 1 billion tons of CO2 and equivalent to growing 25 billion trees, which is a massive amount of damage to the environment. So we have been talking about technology savvy, high tech, and so on. We have actually done enormous damage to the environment by trying to create new and new devices, by newer devices, disposing of before they are used sufficiently, and without being aware of it. Let us see how does energy is consumed, what kind of environment impact IT has in a typical enterprise. So we draw power from the grid. So from the grid, you get the AC power, with a high voltage, could be 11 to 10 kV or could be 440 volts, depending on the capacity of power you require from the electricity board. So this main power comes into the distribution and switching. And you also link that to the gensets, the diesel generating sets, because I think we often see power failure, and large enterprises also need a backup in case for some reason there is a failure in the grid power. So a generator acts as a emergency backup, but sometimes it also is another source of power because power is not at all available most of the time when we need it. And of course, if you look at the whole IT landscape, there are IT equipments, non-IT equipments. Non-IT I mean the air conditioning, the HVACs, the lighting, lift, and whatever other equipment which you have, which is non-computing. And this non-IT load can tolerate some amount of failure in the sense that the grid power can fail, you can switch over to the generator, and then it can tolerate this failure. But the IT equipment cannot tolerate power failures. So that's why you see UPS. What is shown here is a representative UPS. In fact, you may have many banks of UPS of different capacity, a single phase, a 3-phase, depending on the kind of IT load you have. So there's again another IT distribution and switching, a whole large circuit, which drives the desktops, servers, and other IT equipment in the enterprise. So although in reality the setup may be more complex, I just created a very simple view just to illustrate the concept. Now let us look at what's the impact of this equipment on the environment. I just discounted the impact of the environment by the grid. Let us look at various other factors. Even the main distribution and switching equipment indirectly generates amount of CO2. It generates heat. It generates electromagnetic radiations in terms of electromagnetic fields, sometimes some fumes, because you use oil and other things for cooling the transformers. Then look at the generator. The generator generates CO2, noise, the suspended particulate matter. It generates EMF, radiations, and a huge amount of heat, water vapor, and a lot of other chemicals which are harmful. Next, looking at the battery. Battery indirectly generates CO2 emissions, heat, fumes, and many other chemicals. If you look at the other IT equipment like HVAC, lighting, they indirectly generate CO2. They indirectly generate CO2 and directly generate heat because they just then similar to lighting also. Then looking at the core IT load, the desktops, printers, servers, and the storage and networking equipment, they indirectly generate CO2 emissions. They directly generate heat, has an impact on humidity. They generate noise, vibration, electromagnetic fields or electromagnetic radiations. Of course, once these equipment are no longer needed, they become huge waste. Disposing that is a challenge in many parts of the world because we don't have proper disposal policies or regulations in place. I'll go on to the next slide. So we have seen what's the impact of various IT equipment on the environment. So what can we do about these things? Just a couple of questions I want to throw at many of you, because these are the few questions. How many of you actually monitor, look at your electricity bill for the organization as a whole? Is there a breakup of the electricity bill available in terms of how much power is consumed by the IT equipment? Do you still get a further breakup in terms of desktops? How much power did the desktops consume? How much power did the data center environment consume? And coming to the non-IT, how much power was consumed by air conditioning? How much power was consumed by lighting? And how much power was consumed by miscellaneous other non-IT equipment? Do you have a breakup of the power consumed hourly, daily? How does the power consumption vary throughout the day? When is your peak load? If you are using, very often when you cross few kilowatt hours of power requirement, you will end up having a three-phase electricity. Then is the load balanced across the phases? What is your power factor? What are the electrical harmonics? What's your total harmonics distortion? Are there any high EMF spots in your entire electrical subsystems? Have you ever measured it? And who are the top energy consumers in terms of equipment? Is AC consuming more power? Is lighting consuming more power? Is your data center consuming more power? Or your desktop consuming more power? You measured your CO2 emissions. What is your per organization carbon footprint? What is your per capita carbon footprint of your organization? What is your power utilization efficiency? PV is another metric used typically in data centers, but can actually reflect the efficiency of your IT and non-IT equipment. I'll go to the next slide. Then coming to the IT load. So we have IT load powered by the UPS. What's the UPS capacity and load? What's the average load on the UPS? What's the peak load? Why these questions are very important? Because all these IT equipment are efficient at a certain load point. If it's very low loaded or overloaded, these equipment are inefficient. Similarly, the data center equipment environment is a system utilization capacity measured and tracked. Is the utilization of the various servers in the data center same throughout the day, or is it varying by the day, hour of the day, varying over a weekend, weekday? What's the workload pattern of your data center? Are you maintaining the right humidity, temperature, and airflow in your data center? Have you ever measured it? If measured, what actions have you taken to bring this under the standard guidelines and recommendations. Do you see any thermal hotspots in a data center? What are these hotspots? See, when you have in a data center, you have a lot of racks. You have air conditioners, precision air conditioners, you have hot and cold aisle. So when the air flows to the data centers, you may have certain equipment which consume more power than other equipment. So these create what is known as thermal hotspots because they are literally hot. They are at a higher temperature. This disturbs the airflow and affects the equipment besides that equipment they are in the same rack. So is their power consumption in line with the IT load? That means IT load is high during, let's say, 3 p.m. in the afternoon every day. Is your power load high at the same time, or your power load is normal throughout the day? What about your IT power load, non-IT power load consumption? How did you calculate the cooling capacity? Is the cooling capacity in line with your IT load, or is it just constant? Does it vary when the IT load goes low? Does it go low, or is it just constant? What about the other important factor, the diesel bill? Is your generator sized correctly? Do you have a 200 kV generator? And what's the capacity you require today? What's the average load, peak load during working hours and non-working hours? During a power failure, when is your generator turned on? Is it turned on at the right time or not? And are you leveraging the benefits of the UPS or not, even though you have a generator? I'll go on to the next slide. And if you do not have answers to many of the points I just discussed about, whether it's just a pure enterprise IT or your enterprise IT and data center or just only the data center, I think you need to have a sort of electrical IT audit done. See, normally what happens is that enterprises do IT audit, is done by the IT people. The electrical audit is done by the electrical people. And these are all due to two different fellows. You need a joint IT electrical audit to be done by experts who understand IT technology infrastructure in great amount of detail, electrical experts who understand the IT aspects of electricity. We'll also need a person who understands thermodynamics because of the heat, temperature, humidity, airflow, and so on. I'll go to the next slide. So we have been working with lots of enterprises, small, medium, and large, for the last couple of years. And there are just a couple of observations we have, generic observations across the industry. And there are some of them are very interesting and quite exciting, and some of them are relevant to many of your organizations. See, last couple of years, if you look at the processor roadmap of Intel, AMD, and other vendors, you have seen a tremendous increase in processing capacity of various desktop servers and computing equipment. But however, today, large amount of enterprises do have a dual core, a Core 2 Duo, i3, i5, or i7 it upgraded recently, or equivalent process, and decent amount of RAM, 2 GB or more, and the disk capacity could vary between 160 GB to half a terabyte. What we have found is one very interesting thing, that average utilization of CPUs across these enterprises is much less than 30%. Very often we see 27, 28%. Very rarely we see going beyond 30%, even in a dual core or Core 2 Duo environment. And average memory utilization is less than 50%. And they have sufficient desktop computing power. There are a small percent of users who are, I would say, power users who run thick lines or run video, graphics, and or do some kind of analytics who require high computing. But the majority of the users, utilization is fairly low. What does it mean? You already have a sufficient computing power in your enterprise. Then coming to the server part in the data centers, server utilizations are fairly low. All the customers who have bought servers last 3-4 years, utilization is fairly low, in the low single digit or the low double digit. Sometimes I've seen enterprises where utilizations, they upgrade the infrastructure a couple of years back, have very high-end computing environment. The utilization is in the low single digit, like 1 or 2%. And WAN utilization is fairly high, 50%. Very few enterprises are using IT energy savings. It's not surprising at all. And IT and electrical capacity are not aligned. Electrical capacity is done different by a different team, and IT capacity is done differently. They're not aligned. They are in silos. And not many organizations have a carbon footprint measurement in place, or do they have a baseline of the current CO2 consumption? I'm going to the next slide. So what can you do? Irrespective of your current situation, what can you do to contribute to the environment from the IT perspective? If you do not have any data about your IT and electrical power consumption, recommend you to do a IT electrical audit and do a baseline. Figure out where you are today. Then you can figure out where are the loopholes, where are the electrical energy leaks, IT energy leaks, and then you can plug those leaks and become more efficient. Then coming to other two important aspects of any enterprise, tech refresh policy. It's prerogative of any vendor to come and tell you that this is the latest and greatest equipment. Just like a car, manufacturer come and tells you I have a 500 bhp car, why don't you buy it? It's not about what the car does or what a computing system has, a desktop or a server has. Look, you need to look at what you need. You need to do an independent ROI analysis. And don't be biased by any vendor specific data, because many of the vendors' data are skewed in their favor in terms of the tests which are not representative of your real environment. Do you need a faster processor? Some of our findings say that if you do have a Core 2 Duo or i3 processor or equivalent, the utilization is very low. There is no reason to upgrade. Then another important talk about virtualization of desktops. You need to relook at the virtualization of desktops. Is it going to bring any value? Yes, at the desktop level it is going to have some energy savings, but it will shift the energy consumption from your desktop to the data center. And mind you, the data center energy consumption, the cost of energy in the data center is much, much higher than a desktop environment, because use a HVAC, here you have high availability, you have higher end server equipment. Typically servers are kept on 24/7, whereas in the desktop you typically end up turning on off the desktops at least end of the day every day. And finally, do an impact analysis of the environment for CO2 emissions. In the earlier slides I talked about, when you burn equipment, you already burnt enough CO2, it causes enough damage to the environment. So buying a new equipment, are you overall reducing the CO2 emissions? May not be. So do a CO2 emission analysis before you do a tech refresh. Coming to energy savings, you need to create an energy consumption baseline so that you can figure out where you are. Start adopting IT energy savings. What we have seen we have seen organizations having up to 50% savings, small and medium and even large organizations having 50% savings. And you may not be able to, depending on the kind of equipment you have, brand, manufacturer, where the equipment from, you may realize the savings anywhere in the range from 20-30% to 50%. And you need to make a beginning here. And last but not least is see whether you can stretch the life of your IT equipment wherever it's feasible. If your utilization is very low, if your equipment is 3 years old, if you adopt IT energy savings, you're turning off the equipment which you don't need, and when you don't need, you're actually increasing the MTBF. So by extending the life of the equipment, what you are doing is you're averaging the CO2 emissions which were done which was emitted during the manufacture and transportation for a longer period. Instead of a 3-year period, for a 4-year period, you are actually reducing the CO2 emissions. Similarly, the same thing holds good too for tablets, mobile phones at the individual level. Instead of changing mobile phones every year, if all of us can stretch it to 2 years or 2.5 years, we'll bring down the CO2 emissions drastically. And in addition to bringing the emissions, you also save on the capex part. Let me go to the next slide. So what have we done? In the last few years at Vigyan Labs, we have been researching on energy optimization, savings, techniques, and why the traditional savings techniques have not succeeded very often. It's because traditional approach has been to try to do some generic optimizations, create time-based policies. Okay, if system is idle for 5 minutes, just turn it off. What's the definition of idle? The definition of idle is a user working on it. But is it valid in a server environment? No. Even a desktop environment, you just, you started doing something, you just took a break for a coffee, or took a break, or in a conversation with somebody. Can you turn off a system? No. And there are many of the approaches which are traditional are device specific, chip specific, OS specific, which is not enterprise scalable. Most often, other than these issues, the traditional approach have been disturbing the end users. Moment you disturb an end user, the power savings are not achievable because it's causing a lot of inconvenience to the end user. And it's always a fight between the IT power saving versus performance. You end up trading performance versus power, and you don't know. If you just go and set up the Windows power savings or any other operating system specific savings, you don't know. You can't measure how much power did I save, where did I save more, where can I save more. It's not measurable. It's not quantifiable easily. So what have we taken? We have taken a different approach towards power management. We say power consumption and savings have to be tailor-made depending on the usage pattern of that enterprise. But to a large extent, our observation has been that every domain or a vertical, so financial services or just IT organization, a BPO, education, pretty much the power optimization policies are specific policies work across a particular domain. And what we have also created is called the application sensor policies. What does it mean? Basically, the root cause of the consumption of power is some application running somewhere. So you can figure out what an application needs, what it doesn't need. You can intelligently turn off what it doesn't require. You can turn off a component in a server, a component in a desktop, a component in a tablet, or a component in a mobile phone, while the rest of the components continue to work. So that's what we have done. We have created application sensor policies, a framework for which we have built-in policies for standard applications, desktop applications and server applications. These are pre-built. As an end user, you don't need to do anything. Just enable these policies and it starts saving power even while you're using your system. These policies work across operating systems, heterogeneous operating systems, across processors, and you can do fine-grain optimization. Our optimizations are non-intrusive, does not affect the user experience, and since we measure and monitor performance, we can save without having any performance impact. And finally, the power savings are quantified. You can actually define a policy and measure how much saving it has done, how much more savings, if at all possible, you can do by doing some optimizations of the power policies. I'll just go to the next slide. So what is the approach towards intelligent power management? Basically, first thing is to discover the IT assets, discover the power consumption, power sources, and sinks. Where is the power generated? Where is it consumed? Then measure and analyze the power consumption at various, so starting from the mains to the end devices. Measure wherever possible. Measure, analyze the usage patterns. Is your consumption in line with your business requirement or your IT load? If not, then figure out, apply the right policies so that you can start saving power. So IPM Plus has been one of the leading IT energy management products in the world today. It's been one of the most awarded products. We won the NASSCOM IP for Biz Award as the leading enterprise IT software of the year in 2012. That was just a couple of months back. 2013, just a couple of weeks back, we got the NASSCOM Technology Innovation of the Year Award. Before that, we got the ITBiz.com Award, IBM Global Entrepreneur Award, and the Microsoft BizSpark Award. So it's one of the leading products in the market today. It has got significant potential for you to implement in an enterprise and save power and go green. Moving on to the next slide. Just give an illustrative ROI for desktop deployment. So if you have 50, 100, 500, 1,000, 5,000, the kind of energy savings you can achieve. So these are only illustrative. Actual, the savings will differ based on the kind of hardware you have, your vertical domain, and the usage pattern. Nevertheless, this gives a fair idea of savings. The savings in the range of 30 to 50% of the power consumed in an organization. And you can just see that, a 1,000-node organization can save lakhs of rupees every year just by adopting, power savings in the enterprise. And similarly, if you have millions of desktops in the country, you can start adopting power savings. We can save nearly 200 gigawatts of hours of power, which actually is sufficient to power a large number of homes in a tier 3 city. And in addition, while saving power, since you are turning off equipment which are not in use, you are actually increasing the MTBF of the equipment, which means you can stretch the life of your desktops beyond 3 years. You can probably go to 3.5 to 4 years, or maybe still higher. Now I'll move on to the next slide. So to create awareness about IT power savings, we, along with WWF, created an initiative called Earth Hour 2013, and we launched this initiative about a month back, exactly on January 23rd this year. And we were quite amazed by the amount of enthusiasm shown by contestants around the world. We have actually about 250 cities are participating in the contest. There are 7 countries, 855 contestants participated in this contest. Until date, in about a month's time, you can see in the graph, this snapshot of the graph was taken a couple of hours back from the live site. You can go to ipmplus.com and see the live data for yourself. What you have demonstrated is that people in small towns, villages, big cities around the world have installed this free version of IPM Plus on their desktops, and we have saved more than a megawatt of power in less than a month's time, and see the impact of savings. So you can actually as well see, if you had 1,000 plus computers in your organization, you can actually see the kind of impact you can have in terms of reducing the CO2 emissions, reducing the power consumption, and creating awareness. So what I would request as a part of this webinar is all of you to join this contest, to demonstrate to the world that sitting here in this part of the world, we can save power, we can reduce the emissions, and let's create a movement which can empower individuals and organizations to save more in terms of money, emissions, and trees. You can just see that, if you see the snapshot here, we have saved nearly 14 trees in just a couple of weeks. Imagine we had tens and thousands of computers, could have saved hundreds of trees and tons of CO2 emissions. So there are exciting prizes to be won in the contest. The contest is open for both individuals and organizations. So one of the things about the contest, important factor about the contest is that individuals can refer their friends, or organizations refer peer organizations, and when you refer organizations, the referred organization should give you a reference ID in the email, reference email ID while installing the software. So the details are available in the website. So what does it mean? That the contestant winner will be decided by the individual or the organizations who get the highest number of points. The points are awarded on the basis of the number of desktops which have gone green, amount of CO2 emissions saved on their organizations or individual desktop, plus the number of desktops and CO2 emissions saved on their referred friends or peer organizations savings. That means if I have one desktop, if I refer 10 people, I get the credit of referring 10 people also. So the more I refer, more points I get, and I can go higher up in the rankings. So what I request all of you is, the power to save is in your hands. You can make a difference to your organization, to your environment. Please go to ipmplus.com, download IPM Plus installer. So there are separate installers for individuals and organizations. If you are a large enterprise, we have made your life simple by creating a silent installer which can integrate with your patch management tool or your Active Directory. You can silently install from your patch management server or your Active Directory across hundreds and thousands of desktops in a matter of few minutes. So let's make this Earth Hour very valuable and different from what is happening all these years. So please join this contest at ipmplus.com, and let's celebrate Earth Hour 2013 in a totally different way. Let us demonstrate to the world that we sitting in India can save huge amount of power for ourselves and make a difference to the global world in terms of emissions and environment. And thank you. So this brings the end of my presentation. I'll just leave the next 10 plus minutes for any questions. I'm willing to take any questions and answer them. So thank you for listening patiently for nearly an hour.
Mr. Srinivas, I have assigned you any questions. Are you able to see them in your questions pane?
Not yet. Question. Yeah, I'm just just quite a few things. Just hold on. Not able to scroll on it actually.
Undock the questions pane from the control panel, then you would be able to see the questions clearly.
Okay, I just go to the top one, okay. Yeah, I just started the thing. Yeah. I'm not able to see the author. When I see the question, I think the author field is going away.
Undock the pane and resize this window, make it large.
I made it large itself. Yeah, can I start now? Yeah, the first question is from Chandni Chetal. The question is, what is the use of power optimization and its scope in IT and others? See, power optimization refers to cutting down the power consumption. What should you use, right? First thing is you will save money, first thing, because it's going to bring down your power bill. Second thing is, because you're turning off equipment, you're reducing your electricity usage. The indirect impact is you're reducing the power consumption and making the power available for people who need it. The third thing is, since the CO2 emissions, the carbon CO2 emissions are a function of the power generated. So once you reduce the power consumption, you're reducing the CO2 emissions. And this is applicable to IT or any other field, any field, anywhere, wherever power is consumed, you start optimizing the usage of the equipment, shut it down, reduce the power consumption, you are reducing the CO2 emissions and many other aspects like heat, humidity, temperature, depending on the kind of equipment you are using. I'll go to the next question. Next question is from Vinay Kumar. The question is, you tell most of the CO2 emission is in manufacturing process, means that today our manufacturing process is not so good. Yes, it's not so great. If you look at the history, 5-6 years back, the manufacturing process is to emit about 70% or 80% of CO2. So over last 5 years, because of the regulations, in the various countries, the amount of CO2 emitted during the manufacture has reduced significantly. But still, it's around 50% plus depending on the kind of equipment, and which is why it's very important. So as end users, we do not have much say in the manufacturing process. We can only be influencers. Where we do have a say is in the usage of the equipment. If you stop throwing away cell phones every year, 1.5 years, if you can use it for a little longer, you are indirectly helping in stretching the CO2 emitted during the manufacturing process for a longer duration. And at this point, I think that's all we can do. If any of you are there as influencers or are part of the industry, manufacturing industry, you can go back and look at your own processes and see how much can you reduce, how much CO2 emissions you can reduce, how much energy you can reduce as a part of your processes. And next question is from Rupan KS. It's a very generic question, how to recycle waste, right? So I don't have any specific answer, it's a generic answer. So what we should do is, first of all, look at specific equipment. For example, it's a, you must have seen advertisements, articles in paper about, reuse, recycle, like just take it. So I hope you are talking about e-waste. So the e-waste, I think every manufacturer, as an end consumer, we cannot do much about it. So many of the manufacturers already do have provisions where you can give back the equipment for recycling. So if you have bought a desktop or a laptop or a phone from any of these, just go to the manufacturer's website and please do check. They do have collection points where you can go and deliver the used or damaged equipment. So they will take care of recycling. So the best you can do as of today is, regarding e-waste, is hand over the used or the broken equipment to the manufacturers or the representative where they collect this used or broken equipment. Next question is from Raju Sharma. How does our PC damage our human body? See, there is no evidence of direct damage, there is only indirect. So we have seen many things, like see, when you use any electronic equipment, a CRT or a LCD monitor, earlier we used to have CRT monitors which used to generate quite a bit of ultraviolet radiations. Today, with widespread use of LCDs, the radiations have reduced significantly. So in spite of that, what the current generation of desktops do is, they do emit a small amount of EMF radiations to the extent of, I would say, what you have seen measured is about close to close to 1 Gauss. So the measurement units for so anything between less than 1 Gauss is considered as safe for the human body. Anything above 1 Gauss is considered as slightly enzyme. Although we don't have any regulations in India, worldwide there are regulations which say that any equipment should not generate more than 1 or 2 Gausses of EMF radiation. So if you do have a EMF sensor, you can take the EMF sensor near any of the PCs you have and do a measurement. You will see if it crosses beyond 1, you can just stay a little away from it or reduce the usage of that one. If it's very, very too high, if it's order of few Gausses, I think you should stop using this equipment because it's so harmful. Next question is from Dinesh Manju. The question is, can we get a demo of the software, how it works? If you are a individual user, what you can do is, you can go to the site ipmpress.com, you can download, there's a free version available for the Earth Hour, you can download and use the software for yourself. If you are an enterprise user, you can just send a mail to info@vigyannlabs.com. We'll be glad to give you a demo and a presentation of the use of the software. The next question is from Chris Kumar. The question is, what amount we can save in INR for 100 PCs per month? What I will do is I'll just show you the slide, which gives illustrative number. The actual numbers will vary depending on your brand model. Just have a look at this number. So you can probably save, close to, you can save close to ₹1,00,000+ over a year. The exact number will depend on your usage. So what you can do is, to get a very precise number, you can go to the site ipmpress.com. There's the energy savings calculator there. You can click on the calculator, enter the number of desktops you have, mention the usage, how many hours in a day you use, you turn it off, turn it on, is it LCD or CRT monitors, enter all the details, until it will estimate and give you a rough calculation of the amount you can save. Okay. The next question is from Vinay Kumar. please tell us the latest equipments have more emission on CO2. I'm not sure, Vinay, what you actually meant here. I think the latest newer equipments do have lesser and lesser emissions because there are strict regulations around the world in terms of reducing the CO2 emissions. So I would say all the newer equipments do have lesser emissions. Next question is from Koteshwara Venkata Rao. Are you sure his latest tech device will reduce CO2? And yes, so what today is mandatory for many of the countries, European and America, to show the amount of CO2 emitted during the life cycle of equipment. So if you plan to buy any IT equipment, you can go to the website of the manufacturer and see what's the CO2 emissions during the life cycle of the equipment and figure out for yourself, right, the kind of equipment you are buying. Is it good or is it very, very high or low? Okay. Next question is from Rajiv Agarwal. He said, I work in Wipro and our IMG department has implemented a number of power saving features in both desktops and laptops. How does your tool compare with what Wipro has? Hello, Mr. Rajiv. So I do not have much idea of what your tool does. What I can say is what is unique about IPM Plus is that it's an intelligent energy management solution. So what it does is just not only tries to save power, at the same time measures the usage. So based on the usage of the systems, you can optimize the power policies. It balances power and performance, optimizes power and performance together. Because very often you see power savings results in poor performance because many of the power saving software do shut down processors or turn off processor when you don't need to do it or turn off disk when you shouldn't be doing it. So what is unique about IPM Plus is it has a built-in intelligence called application sensor. Based on what applications are running on a desktop or laptop, it can selectively turn on, turn off those components without causing any end user impact. That's first thing. Second thing, it can actually measure the power consumption savings, and that way you can actually find out how much you are saving, how much you are wasting. You can keep on optimizing your power policies. The third thing is these power policies are applicable across a wide range of operating systems. It's not bound to any specific operating system. So if you have a mix of XP, Vista, 2003, Windows 7, Windows 8, you can define one generic policy in the tool and apply across whole range of devices. So in addition to power management, it has got a lot of other interesting features. So what I can do, Rajiv, I can probably get back to you a separate discussion. You can just send me a mail at Srini@Vigyan Labs. We can have further discussion. I can provide you more details. Next question is from Rajendra Kumar. Is that undergone I'm just trying to, so the next question is from Rajendra Kumar. Is it undergone security consideration? So I hope you are talking about the energy saving software. Yes, it has gone and undergone a security consideration. Yes, it has inbuilt security mechanisms to take care of people trying to hack that. So in fact, even Softpedia has done a detailed certification of the software itself. And in addition, it has undergone certification from Microsoft too. Next question is from Vikas Singh. The question is, does it need somebody to come to the company first, then audit every IT infrastructure and then take their decision? I don't think it depends on what kind of, if you already have tools which can measure something, you can get the data from the tools, it can be done reasonably offline. If you don't have any tools in-house in place, it will require somebody from outside to come and use non-intrusive tools to make some measurements. Next question is from Balaji Lakur. One generic question. What's the percentage of power wasted in enterprise for not switching off desktops after work by employees? Do you see a government mandate coming up anytime soon to support auto switch to shut off systems if beyond 4 hours of inactive CPU usage? See, typically, if you don't switch off the computers, normal working hour is probably, you can say, between 8 to 10 hours. So if you don't turn off the computers after the office hours, you can just simply see, it's a simple math, right? You are saving for power for 14 hours out of 24 hours, which is fairly substantial, right? So you can see, more than 50% of power savings easily just by turning off computers after the employee leaves the office if he hasn't turned it off. And as of now, there's no mandate as such, but in many parts of the world, there are regulations, which enforce people to do it. But in India, I don't see any regulation coming as of now. But in enterprise-wise, because the cost of electricity is going up every now and then, the cost of diesel is going up. I think there's an imperative for organizations, the CFOs and CAOs to start looking at power savings because it can affect your bottom line significantly. Next question is from Sri Ramanujam. Do you see a government mandate coming up anytime to support auto switch off to shut down of systems? So far I don't think there's been any initiative. We have been working with various agencies. Probably it will take a while before our government can react and pass some legislation. Next question is from Prasanna. The question is related to extending the life of a system versus refreshing to the energy efficient newer system. From a point of power saving point of view, how do they compare? See, you need to look at the overall in a holistic view. A new system could be 20% more efficient in power. What does it cost for you to buy a new system? So you need to do a ROI analysis. You have bought an existing system. Let's assume you're using it for 2 years. It has cost the money X. Right? Let me take a simple example of a desktop. You have a Core 2 Duo desktop. You paid around 35,000 rupees for 2 years back to buy a Core 2 Duo desktop. Now you have a Core i5 or i7. Yes, probably it's a little more energy efficient. Look at your desktop usage, energy consumption. Does it justify? Is the utilization very low? Is the utilization 25% only? Is the utilization 80%? Is the utilization 90%? Look at your CPU utilization. If CPU utilization is really high, it's maxed out. Yes, it makes sense to switch over to the new generation efficient. So CPU utilization is very low. It does not make sense to switch over right now because quite an amount of fossil fuels have been burned in making this desktop. So 50 to 60% of energy has already been consumed in making it. So try whether you can continue to use the desktop with some energy management software for another couple of years. This way, you're not only saving money for your organization, you're also saving the greenhouse gas emissions. Next question is from Dinesh Manju. How it makes a difference to save power by using applications, how it works. I think probably need to understand the concept a little better. It does not save power by doing anything to the applications. It saves power by turning off the components of a system which is not required by any application as such. So it internally turns off. Let's say you are running a database server. Database server is an IO intensive job. It cannot turn off this. So there are many cores which the database server is not utilizing. It can probably turn off cores if the IO is high and the CPU utilization low, and thereby saving power. That is just one example. There are many different scenarios, and each scenario could be different. I think probably the last question, I'm almost out of time. Next question is from Sujit Kumar Nandi. Internet does not use much electricity. How much energy the internet saves us? Dear Sujit, I think the internet does use a significant amount of energy. If you just look at the article in New York Times, which was published towards late of last year, there are hundreds of terawatts used by various equipment in the internet. There are huge data centers sitting out there from Google, Yahoo, Amazon, Facebook. So internet is consuming a huge amount of data without you knowing about it. There's just two more short questions. Raju Sharma says, what are the requirements of saving IT power energy? And the next question is from Senthil Khanna. Can zero CO2 emission is possible if we strictly follow energy saving? So I think we're just running out of time. What I can do is Raju Sharma and Senthil Khanna, please just send me a mail to srini@vigyanlabs.com. I'll get back to each one of you with detailed responses to your questions. And again, thank you all for listening patiently for the last 1 hour, and request you all to join this Friends of Earth contest. Let's do something differently this year and tell the world how much power you can save, what the kind of impact you can make visiting in India itself. Thank you. Have a good day.
Mr. Srinivas, for the insightful presentation. I'm really thankful to you for conducting this webinar. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of the session would be available on techgeek.com by tomorrow. Thank you all. Have a great evening.